Welcome back, everybody. I'm at it again. Another great panel of authors. I love this. I've gotten so many new perspectives and lessons learned. A lot of times the authors in the show are scribbling notes because they heard something good someone else said. So tune in to this, but also know that you can go to bizbookpublishinghub.com to listen to these episodes. A new one is released every Tuesday and Thursday. So check that out. And now let me introduce this week's episode. You've published your book. Congratulations. But if you think your journey ends there, think again. Publishing isn't just the destination. It's a powerful springboard that can open doors you never even imagined. A book can serve as a credibility tool that transforms how people see you. It can lead to speaking engagements, new partnerships, consulting gigs, and countless connections with readers and peers. Your book is more than just pages. It's a key that can unlock opportunities you never thought possible. That's why I guide authors to stay open to the unexpected. Whether it's a chance conversation with a reader that sparks a business deal, an invitation to speak at a major conference, or connections that catapult you to new levels, your book can become a game changer for your career and business. If you're ready to make the most of these opportunities, schedule a complimentary 30-minute book launch brainstorming session with me at booklaunchbrainstorm.com. That's booklaunchbrainstorm.com. Together, we'll explore how to amplify the impact of your book and connect with your ideal audiences. Now, before we dive into today's insightful panel, here's a quick word from our sponsor. Joining us today, I've got two awesome authors who are going to share surprising ways their books, and they have many, have transformed their lives and businesses. Jenn T. Grace is the author of Publish Your Purpose, a step-by-step guide to write, publish, and grow your big idea. She's the founder of Publish Your Purpose, a hybrid publisher for authors who are thought leaders, experts in their fields, and visionaries paving the way to social change. She's also one of the BizBook Publishing Hub partners. Groshek wrote a life-altering book, I Will Teach You to Be Dynamic, that combines actionable advice and profound insights to empower readers to navigate challenges and amplify their impact, embracing a dynamic approach to personal and professional growth. Please join me in welcoming Jenn and Kim. Welcome. And Jenn, let's kick it off with you. I always want to know a sense of like, who is the ideal audience for your book? And I know that you have a pretty specific focus. So who would most benefit from reading the book I just mentioned?
So my book is really designed for the first-time author. I would imagine if you've written a book already, you can certainly benefit from the information in it. But it's really the first-time author who doesn't really know where to start in terms of the writing process and has no idea what to do with the publishing process.
Yeah, that's really great. Quite handy. It's one I reference and refer people to all the time. Kim, what about you? I know you've got myriad books out there. I think today we're really going to focus on I Will Teach You to Be Dynamic. So tell us a little bit about who the audience is for that book.
Yeah, so it was specifically for the 35-year-old mid-management executive who wants to move up and they're stuck. So I teach concepts in the I Will Teach You How to Be Dynamic to actually do that, right? I actually, all of my stuff in there is actually my entire 35 years of experience in one book. It's all my secret sauce. Yeah.
Small into the fit in a pocket. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's right.
So now, Kim, you we were just talking about this before we hit record. You've written multiple dozens books. At least we've got 30 on Amazon, plus many academic publications beyond that. I'm so curious about how you think about the success of each book. Like, what are the metrics you track, and how has that evolved as you became an experienced author? Like the first time, long time ago, when you didn't really, probably just publishing the book was the goal, to now where you must have a real plan for why the book is out here and how it's going to serve you and others.
Yeah. So my first book that I published, self-published, was in 2007. It was my first children's book. And it was something that a passion project more than anything else. And I did listen. I had actually experts that were, big name authors that reviewed it. And they gave me really big suggestions on changing it, but I didn't. because it was from my heart. That was really my objective. And I learned from publishing the 7 books, they're all kids' books, different age groups, right? I learned about that and the audience, but I also learned about how do you promote it. So now, and since 2015, I would say, is when I've been really hitting it hard and getting these published. I've been writing a lot, but I've been publishing more lately. Like I've had it written since 2015 and been putting them out there. And there is an objective behind it, each group for each book. And it is very, very, very strategic. And I look at it from, it's not just selling a book. It truly is to get the information that I have from all of my years of experiences out in the world. And many of them are applied practical approaches people can take with them. And I'm going to just bring up one other book because it is very different than this. I Will Teach You to Become Dynamic. The ZAP book is very specific to executives, to when they're in a funk, F-U-N-K, they actually can read from the beginning and get out of the funk through the reading it. And it's a handbook more than it is the I Will Teach You to Be Dynamic, which the one that we're talking about today, there's actually formulas in each of the chapters that I align with because things start with numbers. And then I talk about the concept. So it's actually people can come back to it again and again and again. So it is that I go out on stages. I bring one book that the audience wants to learn. And I ask the conference, what do you want? What does your audience want to learn? And then I come to the table with that, with the solution, with the books. So that's how I do that.
So clearly you have the audience in mind for not just the book, but for the speaking engagements that can come with the book. Do you also do coaching or consulting?
Yes.
Restaurants, all that?
Yeah.
Okay. You kind of
Good
do all the things.
Yeah, so I have a master. And I'm just going to say I have a mastermind, but in that I actually, in the coaching, okay, so if a person's dealing with, they want to up level, I've got this up level book, and I'll say, go get the up level book and read a chapter, and then we'll talk about it and we'll work through the coaching on that. So it gives them the time to kind of percolate, read, learn on their own, and then they can use the concepts, and then it helps me coach. Right.
I want to circle back to the more how do you get it into people's hands side of this, but I want to bring Jenn in. Jenn also wrote this book as a real focus of the business that you have. And Jenn, I've separately interviewed you about the services you have for authors and why you're doing this and your passion for it. But having the book changes things. A lot of what Kim just said, you now have something people can reference on their own and then come to you with their stuck. But what were some of the initial goals you had for the book, and how did you approach the marketing piece related to it? Like, how did you think about getting this book in people's hands?
Yeah, it's interesting because, as Kim was saying, when you have different books, I have 7 and I have 2 that I focus on, and the goals for each of those 2 are dramatically different from one to the other. And when I look at this book, the core focus is to help people get through the process. And obviously, I would love nothing more if someone wanted to work with PYP. That would be wonderful. However, that's not a reality. And so it's written in a way that is completely a self-starter. You can pick it up and you can go from start to finish and have a book written without needing any other help. And so, excuse me, I'm getting over COVID. When we look at how do we get it into people's hands? When the goal is to be a lead generator, which in my case it is, I don't care if the book sells. So I do a lot of promotions and I give my book away a lot of the time because it doesn't really matter about the transaction of a couple of dollars. So I'll have a conversation with somebody. They'll say, I'm really stuck on this particular thing. And I say, well, I have chapter 5 is about target readership. Why don't I share the ebook with you? You can go dive in. And then inevitably they'll come back with either more questions or, oh, hey, I saw that you referenced in your book that you have this writing program. Is that something that's open, or is it open available right now? And so that's why my marketing is really different. And it's a lot of grassroots marketing too. And then Robbie, obviously you have your cross promotions that you do, which are fantastic and phenomenal. And that's why I think more authors, in my own opinion, should be more generous in just giving their book away or discounting their book, because there's definitely other authors that under no circumstance ever will they discount a book, and that's their prerogative because they have different goals. So that's why we want to kind of really make sure that we're looking at each individual book as a kind of standalone thing and not apply a one size fits all strategy to all of the books just because.
I appreciate that. And I think it's something that anyone listening should be wary of. If you work with a service provider expert around some part of this book piece and they're like, this is the only way to do it, like run away. Because I think it's better to have the approach that I just heard from you, Jen, which is really someone should ask you enough questions to understand what you're trying to achieve and then offer you a few opportunities or strategies for getting there. So, okay, that's the outcome you want. Well, here's the next steps that you might want to take, just depending on money, time, effort, energy, etc. Whether it will work. And then experimentation is so important. My friend Chris Fenning, I just interviewed one-on-one. He's had such success with this book. He does tons of experiments to see what will work. And he says there are things that some of his colleagues say, oh yeah, I get influencers to talk about my book. He's like, I've tried that. It has not worked. It has not worked for my book. It'd be nice, but it doesn't work, And so it's really about seeing what's out there, but not feeling like you have to do everything or that everything should work for your book. Kim, I love that, Jen is talking about the importance of the book in relation to, getting the information out to people. You have so many books. And they say you should always be marketing, right? Like publish your book and then market every single day thereafter.
Yep.
Do you have certain books, Jen? Not Jen, Kim. Do you have certain books, Kim, that you're also like, out of all your titles, these are the 2 or 3 each year? You're like, okay, this is the time period. It seems right, or is it really having a conversation? I'd love to hear how you use them.
Yeah, so I use some of what Jen does in a different way. I usually give an ebook out, but usually it is that I bring books along and they always want the signed copy. So I usually get a lot of leads because they want the book right in their hands. But I really am, I do know what the world needs. That's why I'm writing about it. I'm writing about all my experiences because I'm surprised at what the audience wants. That's really what how I'm doing it. But I'm talking about it all the time. So like I'll be do my funnels through my emails, right, to say, hey, I have a new book out. And it's surprising that more people like buy this one book rather than the other book. But there is strategic, again, for me, there's a very strategic objective. It's about leaving a legacy. And I know that the books will be there long before I'm gone. And this knowledge is very, very, we all have this knowledge. And since I have the ability to write and publish, I'm able to put that out there, and I am retired, so I have the time to do it. And I do know the process of, collaboration that's coming out in March. And we are working on the whole process around, getting the buzz out there and doing a summit before and doing the ebook pre-release and all the processes that you do. I know how it works. I don't do it with all my books because what it is I know they're going to sell. And like I said, I'm surprised about the most recent one that came out called Scammed. It's like people are just buying it because they want to know the truth, which is the truth is what I say. Now, I'm not saying that my truth is right. I just did research and this is what my truth is. And they can take it and do more research on it. But it was surprising. I thought no one would want to read it because it's against the grain, right? In the world, it's like all this stuff. So yes, my strategy is similar to Jen, but different. And I do not believe from the way filtered perspective of what authors think, oh, I have my book out there. Now I have to work on getting it to be a bestseller. That is not why I do it. Although I do get bestsellers because, and it would be cool to get a New York bestseller, which I haven't done that yet. I've been at the book exchange and signed books theirs when I was doing the kids books. So that was a cool experience. But what I am saying is, we wake up, we grow up when we go through the process and we realize it isn't about selling the book at all. It is truly about getting the information out there in a way to, like Jen says, when you ever read a book, don't you ever at the end look at who's the author and where are they and wonder where they are? You really want to connect with the author. That's the end result. And the books bring people to me in whatever way. I cannot give them all my attention and time. So that's why I write the books, to get the information out there, because they can at least get a part of me.
Yeah. And it sounds like you want both of you, and I will include myself in this. We're all about having a big impact and wanting to get our ideas and what we've learned out into the world. And every book does have a sort of a different path depending on what those outcomes are that we're looking for. Jenn, you and I have spoken extensively around the review process, which is like something I feel yay about, and some people are like, oh gosh. And I think of it as the book reviews on Amazon, they're social proof that stay on the book sales page forever. If you're following a smart launch process, you'll hit number one, because you could probably hit number one in most categories pretty easily, selling between 20 and 50 books that first week. Yet people skip that. They often jump right into publishing and PR, from publishing to PR, I should say. You're a publisher. You and I have talked about some of your authors and what steps they could be taking. Where do you think authors can put their energy? Once the writing is underway, when should they start to think about the next steps of the book? And you've done this well for your book. I mean, I remember I looked here and you've got 70 something reviews, I think. I mean, it was a good number. So 81. You have 81 out of 82 ratings. So 82 people did the stars, and almost every single one. You got to find out that one person is, Jenn.
I know, it haunts me.
Who is that one person that only did the ratings? That's amazing. Over 80 written reviews for a book. But from your experience of your authors that that's not what's happening when they just hit publish. So what would you give, why should they bother, and when should they start to switch gears in their brain from writing to thinking about these next stages?
I think it's different for everyone. So if I look at kind of our publishing approach, we like to run marketing and publishing parallel together. Not every author has the wherewithal to be able to actually focus on both of those things at the same time. And, Kim and I and Robbie, you obviously have multiple books as well. We know what's going to happen. We know the process. So we are able to kind of switch gears and dive into marketing while we're also working on the cover, working on the typesetting, whatever the case may be. But a lot of authors are just kind of frozen. So what I usually advise authors to do is to at least just start talking about it. It doesn't have to be something sophisticated and elaborate, but it could just be that you start telling people in conversation, oh, hey, my book's coming out in the fall. You don't have to have a landing page set up yet. You don't have to have the QR codes. You don't have to have all the fancy things yet. You can just start saying my book is coming, because it takes a lot of touch points for people to be like, oh yeah, that's right. Kim said she's got a new book coming out. So we want to be planting those seeds. And then once you have certain marketing assets in place, then you can start doing more things. Your cover, your book's description, a landing page. Now we can start saying, all right, maybe you don't have a sophisticated shopping cart functionality. A lot of authors don't, nor do they want to. But maybe you want to get them on a mailing list. And some people are like, well, I don't have a mailing list. Then set up a Google form, right? There's a lot of really, really basic ways that we can do this that don't have to require money. It just takes a little bit of your time to kind of really think about. And then for the author that really wants to kind of go all out, that's when you can hire in those different marketing professionals or different supports professionals who can really kind of help you take it to the next level. But I really am a big believer that the marketing of the book should start while you are still writing the book.
You say this, and I am just getting underway with my fourth book with a personal deadline to have it done in about 3 months, 3.5 months time. I want it done we're recording this in early January, and we're going to be having an April Kindle Cross promotion campaign. I wanted to be in that. So that's my deadline. And I have content for it. It's not like I'm starting with a blank page. But I now have settled on a title that I like. And I just had this realization yesterday that now they're past the holidays and I'm really going to be working on this book. I need a landing page, because I've now talked about it 10 times this week. And any one of those times, I could have dropped a link to my sign-up form, because I joke with everyone, because the book is about launches. It better have reviews. The book is about the review process. And everyone goes, oh, yeah, let me know. I'll help you. Well, I'm not going to remember to go back to them. And that's what happens when you're openly writing a book and you're talking about it, not waiting until it's out there to talk about, but just in the due course of writing, you're mentioning you're writing a book. You're going to find people who want to support you. So I'm a big believer. I don't think I need a cover design. Some people like to have that up front. maybe it motivates you. For me, I'll wait, but I like having that landing page, and it's just a Google form, nothing fancy. Doesn't have to be anything extreme. Just a simple Google form to collect information from people. But Kim, you don't necessarily do a big push for all your books, and I've glanced, and it looks like reviews have not been a big piece of your process.
No.
I'm curious about your take on what we just said about reviews and social proof, and getting your network sort of involved. Because for me, it's not just about reviews generally, but reviews from prospects, reviews from referral partners.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that whole piece?
Yeah, so I believe in reviews. I did my fiction novel that way that you said. Actually, I had readers read before I even had it out there. It was on the 4th version. It took me 5 years to write that one. And on the 4th revision, I started having my friends read it and say they would do a review. And I know only have like, I think 6 reviews on it, because that's what, those are the 3 they're the 6 that said. And then I also had the form, like you said, and it didn't have a picture of, it just said the book is coming out. I didn't even know the name of it at the time because I kept changing the title. But I had people sign up. So I had the book, there was a book launch day, and that was something. So I'm just kind of, tagging on to what you just said. For the reviews, I do believe in that. I just am not focusing on it at the moment. There are people that I ask, so there's maybe 2 on some and 2 on the other, because I ask them to do the review. And I'm not going to push people to do it right now, because my objective is what it is, right? I know people will, when I go out and start speaking in February on the specific, this I Will Teach You to Become Dynamic book, to be dynamic. That will be one of the focus books, as well as the Practice the Pause book, the 2 books, because I'll be talking to teachers and educators, and it's a gigantic conference. So I will be enrolling them into giving me reviews at that time. So it's a backwards approach where I'm not, like, I already published Pause, I think it was 1.5 years ago, and I didn't ask for I know people are buying it. It's just they aren't putting the reviews, because I'm not really encouraging that.
Oh yeah. If you don't handhold people, I mean, not just ask once, but like ask and prompt and remind. I mean, it what keeps me going is the study, and I can't remember exactly where to reference the study to, but we'll all agree that it's true. More than 90% of buyers look at reviews before making a purchase. And we all instinctively are like, well, yeah, that makes sense. I've looked at reviews. But way less than 10% regularly write reviews. And I sort of have this joke that really happened. I was comparing prices of bulk orders of toilet paper about 2 weeks ago between 2 online retailers, and there were reviews for toilet paper on both sites. So there are people in the world who will write reviews for anything, but I don't know who they are. I wish I knew them, because they would write reviews for all of our books, but I don't know who they are. They just have a lot of free time.
Well, and I do want to add to reviews. So when I did my kids' books, there was a company in Florida that did reviews. You could they would do it for free. There was no payment involved. And all you had to do was actually review back and, do review so many back. And that was something I tried out, but I always believe that it's not fair. It's not really honest or authentic. There's some of that going on with me in my space. And I am not a well-known author. I know that, but people know that I write books, and they buy my books for the knowledge of it. So it's kind of a strange thing. And when I'm more in the enrollment process right now, where I have to do it in a different way, that's the way I see it. I'm not going to go out and just, try to encourage people on social media to write reviews or buy my book even. And some, I do post it, but it is more that they meet me at a conference, and I then enroll them to get the book there. And that's how it's working.
So I guess the way to think about this, because I agree with you that getting randos to write reviews for you doesn't really help. I mean, sure, they're reviews, but I had an author come to me about a relaunch, and I was a little confused because she had 32 written reviews. So I was like, you have more than the 20. So like, what's going on here? And she said her book wasn't helping her get the speaking gigs and all these other things. And I thought, well, she must have some prospects and some referral partners in this list of 32. So tell me more about how I got the 32. And she said, oh, my friends and family really came through for me. And I was like, oh, facepalm, your friends and family don't have budgets. They don't know people who have your problem. They don't have your problem.
Yeah.
So I do think we should be cautious, anyone listening, that if you're gearing up to get reviews, 20, 50, whatever number, think about the reviews are coming from. Because if they're coming from people in your network who know you, who understand what your work's about, might be interested in your work, maybe can make introductions for you or get you on a podcast or on a stage, those conversations we should be having anyway. Like those are the conversations as a business owner we should have, and they'd be motivated to support you. And then that review helps you get more attention for that book, especially if there's a lot of noise in your category. And Jen, you have some supports that you've put in place for your authors in the guiding of them. I think a lot of this is that you ask them questions along the way about why they're writing a book. Can you share a little bit about those questions? Like, what can authors ask themselves to make sure, are they writing the right book? Do they have the reader in mind? I mean, I asked both of you to kick off with like who your readers were, and you did it succinctly. You know what I mean? You had it done. So Jen, how do you help people get to that point?
It's actually the whole first part of my book, because I felt like when I started to write my book, because it's writing and publishing, but I was like, I can't just dive into a book about writing if I don't get the author into the right frame of mind to know why they're doing this to begin with. So it really starts with purpose. The company's publisher purpose. Obviously, purpose is going to be the core of what we do. And so it's really helping people drill down, like, what is the purpose of why you're doing this? And then going back to Simon Sinek's work, right, of start with why. It's like, all right, you answered, but why? Or why does this matter? And why? And I keep having them go deeper in that why, like an annoying toddler who's just very inquisitive, because eventually you get to that real root core of like, oh, I'm doing this to genuinely help people. Because once we know what that is, we can say, all right, now what is the impact that we're trying to have? So we know what the purpose is. Now we can focus on what the impact is. And when we can think about both of those things, it helps the rest of our planning really kind of almost form itself. And if you have that third rung of like really knowing who you're writing for, I feel like every author needs to know who they're writing for. And they should not be trying to figure out who their target market is while the book is being published, because the target market should be the target reader. And that should have been established at the start. And a lot of times that doesn't always happen that way. So if we can just think of those three legs of that stool, every other marketing decision is does this align with my purpose, my impact, my vision, my values, my target reader? And you're like, oh yeah, of course it does. And then it's an easy yes. Oh, okay, this is a tactic I should do. If one of those things is out of balance, you'd be like, it's probably not the best thing for me, or let me at least shelve it and kind of come back to it later.
I can't tell you how many authors, like 50% of the authors that I meet with, who have already, these are people who have a book that exists. They're published. They're coming to me because they didn't really do a launch. They wanted to figure out how to, salvage what they've done so far. And I'm like, okay, tell me about your book. And they can rattle on about their book. Tell me all day long about their book. And I go, okay, so tell me, like, how does the book fit with your business? So if I'm reading it and I get super excited about the book, how can I find you? Like, what ways can I find you? And then what can I do with you next, paid or unpaid? And what ultimately may I want to buy from you that I don't know I need yet, but maybe I'll realize along the way. And they're like, like half of them. And the book's already out, right? Like, they have not followed your process, Jen. They don't yet have that clarity. And often this is their first book and they're like hanging all their hopes on it. So it's not like they're going to do the Kim approach of like, just keep putting out good books every year. They're like, this is the book. It's going to make my name for me. And it's like, with who? Doing what? And why? And I don't know. There's just like this push to rush forward. Do you feel, now that you've got a few books under your belt and more than a few for Kim, and I'm about to go my fourth, I feel like there's just a different level of like ease about this process. Like, I don't feel I'm proving anything. I don't know how to describe it, but been there, done that. It's cool. Like, yeah, I got the 30 bestsellers and I've hit the awards and I've done the thing. And I've gotten over 250 reviews. And like, so it's like, I'm now writing out of like a pureness, there's no, I don't know, like scorecard that I like need to beat. I don't know, Kim, you're still motivated to write, but you're clearly motivated for different reasons than maybe you were initially. how is that changing for you? And how can we get people who haven't gone through this process yet to sort of appreciate the long-term impact as opposed to like the short term, I'm going to hit number one and get a screenshot of my little orange ribbon?
Yeah. Well, it's ironic because that's what I do. So I bring people into the Revitalize for Your Soul collaboration. Within it, I do training on how to, I answer their questions. They really come to want to write books. And I give them systems and processes on how to do that. It's usually a 6-month process. This year, it's going to be a little bit longer because I'm going to let them enroll in February rather than in August of this last year. And a lot of them have created more writings for kids' books and new ideas around a memoir. They've compiled so much writing from the process that I've taught them that they now want to sign up again and get more from me. So that piece of what I teach, which I teach, transformation and transition, but there's a lot of need in that space, and it's a very different way of being a collaborator rather than just saying, do you want to be a collaborator? And then the book comes out and you try to push the reviews and get the bestseller. I truly am creating a program around a collaboration. So they are learning that answer that you're saying through the process of learning the systems that I teach. Does that make sense?
That. Yeah. Jen, is there anything you'd like to add?
I had something before Kim started talking, and then my mind just went in 10 directions because of what Kim's saying, and I've lost my thoughts. So just being honest.
Oh, totally. I love that. I'll restate my question a little bit, Jen, and see if you pick up on anything. I feel like when I went to my third book, I was trying to prove that my and I didn't even know I was going to go into the world of book launch strategy, like officially, but I like wanted to prove to myself that I can out of the gate get X number of reviews and like that my process really, really worked. It wasn't a fluke the first time. It wasn't a fluke the second time. And it definitely would work the third time. And of course, refined it all along the way. And yes, I'm going to have to focus on reviews because it's a book about getting reviews. So there will be a review process. But yeah, I mean, it's real for me. It's like, this is information I really want to get in people's hands because I think they're skipping a step and they're spending a ton of money and they're not getting the impact they could have and the longevity they could have. And I just feel I feel motivated to create this author community and this community of service providers and experts who serve those kinds of entrepreneurial authors, which is the kind of folks that Jen works with. But I do think that there's like a false sense of what's important. I don't know. It's like a myth busting kind of exercise because they all want to hit bestseller. And I'm like, okay, but it doesn't change a dime in your bank account. like it will not tangibly change your ability to get hired and none of those things will matter, but you'll pay someone to get that. So I don't know. I feel like it's a cautionary tale. I don't know. What would you add to all of this, Jen?
Yeah. What I think the root of this is that kind of self-saboteur inner critic that lives within all of us. Because I think that kind of gremlin that's just in the background who's like, you're not good enough. Who are you to write a book? All of those really negative thoughts that come up in every single author's existence at some point, even seasoned authors who've done it a bunch of times, at some point, there's a doubt of like, am I really the one that should be doing this? And so I think that once, like if you're a first time author, I think that is what is terrifying and keeps you frozen and stuck is, wow, I'm actually doing this thing. And then all of those doubts come in. Whereas when you've done 4, 7, 40 something, we start to get to that place where we're like, oh yeah, like this is old hat. Like I've done this before. And it's yes, because the process, we know what the process is. We know how to write at this point. We know how the publishing process works. But I think it's more because we've worked through those inner demons that are telling us that we're not good enough to do it because we've already done it before. So now our brain can't really tell us, oh yeah, you're not good enough to do this because you're like, oh wait, I'm already calling myself an author. What difference does it make? So I think there's more of a kind of like a detachment from the actual outcome of the publishing. Obviously, there's goals and objectives and things like that, but just the emotional detachment from it, I actually think is what is really can be really powerful.
And could allow the author to make more strategic decisions rather than emotional ones about what the next steps can be, like what steps they take. I haven't had this conversation in a panel before because usually there's like at least one, if not two, first-time authors on the panel, and they're wide-eyed. When there's like someone like Kim or Jenn on with them, they're like, "Whoa, how did that happen? And you did the what? And then you got booked to speak, and then you sold book orders of books." Like ideas are hitting them in the head. They're like, "Whoa, one after another," and it's like, well, yeah, I expect that. I think what happens also is when you're new to this, you can't see around the corner. You can't imagine what opportunities are coming your way. But after, the number that you've done, Kim, probably nothing truly unexpected will come of it. You're just kind of weighing options.
I want to say something to what Jenn said, because there's a different perspective. The audience that comes to me is not the first time. Well, it may be the first time author, but it's not about them having the gremlins. It's ironic. I wrote a chapter about gremlins. So when you said, it's like, oh, that's really cool but the people that come to me have gone through major traumas, and it becomes a counseling or they actually go through some inner demon stuff, work with me through it's a system. It's actually a system that allows them to get through even just writing the story. There's some people that have such traumatic experiences when they're real little that they'll have to write a little bit and then get therapy, not from me, from someone else, and then come back to the story and write it again because they have anxiety and there's stuff they're trying to deal with. It's really, it is transformative with what I do. And it isn't about what your people that come to you to say, they aren't afraid of writing. They want to write. They're afraid of the traumas that come up, which is really extreme. Those are the people that come to me. So coming back to what you're saying about the comfort level, for me, I've always been that way as long as I have the system. So and I dive in, I've always been one to jump in feet first. So when I wrote my first children's book, after writing all these different publications for research, at the university, I just said, I'm doing it and I'm going to figure it out. And that's just who I am, though. It's just a different type of person, right? So now I've learned it because I've done it. I know it's a system for me because I teach systems for people to make their life easier. I now use this as okay, now if this is something you want to do, well, let's put the system in place. But there's also other systems that they don't want to write. Typically they do, though, right? So that's how I get through it. There's none of those. The gremlins I go through, Jenn, are different, though. I do go through different gremlins. So, but it's not about writing a book. I do it messy and come in clean. And there are things that I can always learn as an author and a publisher. And Robbie, I'm excited that your book is coming out because I'm going to read it. I'll be a pre-reader if you want.
Yeah.
I was realizing as I'm listening to Kim talk about the people who are coming to you who have had these big T traumas, and there's a cathartic way to relive it and deal with it and process it. A lot of entrepreneurs build their business because they went through something that they don't want anyone else to go through again. And it's not always resolved. So I imagine, Jenn, that as you're working with authors, they maybe, because particularly the angle that you take, these are social justice, purpose-driven entrepreneurs, bring in their selves into the work. Yeah. How does that come up? Like, Kim was talking about people needing to kind of step away and get some support, therapeutic support before continuing. Like, have you seen that happening? And it's maybe helpful that you understand them, like you could appreciate that might be happening for them.
Yeah, I think it happens. There's some percentage of it I think happens with almost everybody. It is the authors that are writing memoirs, for example. Memoirs are a whole other can of animals, which we also publish. And I wrote and published my memoir in 2020. And one of the core reasons is because I've got all kinds of big T trauma and all the little T trauma. So it's just a whole big fest of it. And it felt like my own story was suffocating me. And I would be having conversations with people, and then like my story would match with one person. It wouldn't match with somebody else who knew me longer. And I'm like, well, it all makes sense. I just don't have time to share it all. And so I wrote it with the specific intention to help the one person who was in the same situation I was just feel less alone. And the second piece of it was, well, if I go through the process, I'm already coaching memoir writers. I'm already in all the throes of it and have been for a while. I need to go through that real, raw, messy experience myself and share my own story. And so I think because I've done that, when I'm talking to authors now, and maybe they are sharing, more of a self-help type of book that is very heavy them. It's not a memoir, but it's still heavy on their stories. It's raw and it's exposing. And I think the more, like people like ourselves can have that relatable experience, we can say, I can almost anticipate at this point when someone is going to have a breakdown. Like I actually can anticipate almost to the moment on a call when someone's going to start freaking out. And it's not because I have any spidey sense. It's just because of experience, but also because like I can feel the energy and I can see it, and it's like a knowing. So I think the more people can know that, like, hey, you can anticipate for these things and you're not alone. And hey, I've also gone through it. I think it just makes people feel more comfortable.
This is why I think it's so important that we don't just go to the first publisher or first writing coach that we find, that we really find a match. And if we can find someone who has an openness or an appreciation or an experience that we've had, I mean, in the BizBook Publishing Hub, there's someone who wrote me and said, oh, I just got certified as a master something yoga. Can I put that in my description, my profile? And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. Like, that's a cool thing for someone to know, because clearly you're going to be more open to like a spiritual woo-woo like kind of book. She's like, oh, those are my people. I'm like, well, then we need to rewrite your description to make that clear, because someone who is doing a business but has that kind of slant won't want to go to just like a business publisher. Like the business publisher is going to like not work for them, probably even in style, not just substance. So I love not the competition, but the cooperation and the collaboration model that we have here, where we're shining a light on the differences. I mean, you both seem like you have a very clear audience that you serve. But yes, like Kim said, they come to you, right? Like, because you're putting it out there. Jen, me, all this, we're all having that experience. And it's about the shared values. So this has been an incredible conversation. In a moment, I'm going to ask Kim for the advice she'd give someone who is writing a book to help them grow a business. So first, we're going to hear a quick word from our sponsor. All right, Kim. Might be something you've already said you want to reiterate, or something new. I'm thinking about writing a book. It's going to help me grow my business. What should I be thinking about? What would you offer somebody?
Well, I think they should be thinking about reaching out to the right person that's going to help them, because like you said, it depends upon, can you work with someone? I think Jen and I both are energy people. We can see energy, but we feel energy, but we have different folks that we work with, different, but the same. And so it's, checking out, almost interviewing the publisher, so that you have the right person, instead of just jumping in and saying, oh, you're a publisher, help me. Get help though. Don't do it by yourself, because then it'll make the process easier.
I love it. Jen, what about you? What would you add?
I'm actually going to build on what Kim said, because we have a blueprint on our website that's the 9 questions to ask a publisher, with the explicit intention to help people really evaluate and think through who is the right fit for me. Because I think that in the publishing industry, there's this inherent hierarchy that just has always existed, where it's like there's a publisher and you as the author are beholden to whatever it is that the publisher says or wants, and whatever their terms of service are, and whatever the thing is. And I think authors get nervous and scared to even have a conversation with a publisher for the first time. But we live in a world that does not, it's still in some aspects of the industry exists, yes. But in much of the industry, it no longer exists. So when you're having that conversation with a publisher, what are those things that you should know? What are the things that you want to know about them, or you want them to know about you, to decide, are our values aligned? Because it's not just, especially with a book, it's not just a business transaction. There's plenty of other services where it's very business transactional. And when it comes to a book, for many authors, they only do one, right? The majority of authors only do one. And it is their life's work. It is their heart. It is their soul. And so you want to make sure that you're working with someone who really cares about it as close to as much as they can as you do. And so, there's a lot of good people out there. It's just a matter of finding the one that's good for you.
I so appreciate both of you, because I think anyone listening who's thinking about this journey, Maybe they started down a path, hit some bumps in the road because they talked to a publisher and it didn't feel good and it didn't get as far as they wanted. Maybe they had to let go of it, that relationship. There are a lot of options out there, and you shouldn't just grab the first one. I've told the story a few times already on this show, but I have a client I did a launch for, and her book is a nonfiction book that has a lot of research in it. And she went with a publisher who wasn't used to publishing nonfiction books, and they 3 times edited direct quotes. So she had direct quotes in the book, and they went through 3 rounds of revisions where she had to fix edits that they kept making because they could not understand that those were direct quotes, like to not to be edited. And it was a little bit of a like, how do you not? Oh, it's like they didn't get it. And if she had interviewed them before just saying, "Oh my God, you'll publish my book," you'll take my money. Then she would have had such a better experience and not feel like she wasted so much money and time trying to get the book done. So if you're listening, keep looking for the right fit. It's out there. How can folks find you, Kim, and follow your work? What are the best resources to share?
Yeah, just go to kimgroshek.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn at kgroshek, and you could send me a message if you want more information. But kimgroshek.com, I have a lot of freebies out there that you can check. You can schedule a VIP session with me if you'd like. And there's a lot of information. So I'd love to connect with you.
And do you also have a podcast? Is that right?
Oh yeah, I have Sound Bits podcast. It's 8-minute short little bits of information. It's on iHeartRadio and all the different channels. Very short listen, and it's very well received. So go out there and listen. Awesome. You'll get a lot of information there.
We'll put all these links, by the way, in the show notes at bizbookpublishinghub.com, including links to Kim's most recent 2 books and a link to all the other books she's ever done that are on Amazon, which there are many. Jenn, how can people find you and follow your work?
The best place is definitely our website, which is publishyourpurpose.com, because our focus is so much on kind of equity and education in publishing and with authors. There's a ton of free resources there. I'm personally on all the social medias at Jenn T. Grace. We're also a business. We're on all the social medias. I happen to be the one that's active on LinkedIn. So if anyone wants to personally connect, LinkedIn is the best way to get me.
Brilliant. Again, all those links and show notes will be available at bizbookpublishinghub.com. We'll also find experts who can help entrepreneurs become successful authors. You'll find the events that I host for writers and authors throughout the year to network with each other and our experts, and the Kindle cross promotion campaigns that I run, which is how I got to meet Kim. So I'm really glad, Kim, you joined us there. I'll be doing that 3 times a year going forward. Basically, we lower our Kindle book prices to 99 cents and cross promote. The next ones will be April, July, and November going forward. And super excited to have people check all that out at bizbookpublishinghub.com. Jenn and Kim, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Ravi.
Thank you.